At LISC, when we think about creative placemaking, we're thinking about three buckets: social impact, physical impact, and economic impact. Now, none of these three things exist on their own, but this is the way we like to sort of categorize and put them into typologies. I'm going to share three examples with you for each one of those areas. The first one is on our social impact side. We've got many projects going on, but one that I really like to talk about is in Philadelphia. It's a project of the Village of Arts and Humanities. It's called the People's Paper Co-op, and it's a project that Courtney Bowles and Mark Strandquist, actually artists from Richmond, Virginia, came to the Village of Arts and Humanities as part of their Artist in Residence program and started this program called the People's Paper Co-op. The People's Paper Co-op is a project that is about re-entry, and it brings women in particular as they come out of prison. Philadelphia has this great program where they do expungement clinics, and people expunge their records and then kind of start their lives over again and go out into the world. So what Mark and Cindy did was they worked with a lot of different stakeholders in the community, including legal services and other organizations related to reentry for women, and came up with this project where the women take their records and actually pulp them into new paper and then reimagine their lives going forward. This has been just a really amazing program of empowerment and agency building in the neighborhood. Faith Bartlett was one of the women who came out of the program and is now actually running the program for the Village of Arts and Humanities. And so this program is having social impacts, obviously, by bringing folks together who have come back into society from prison. And Faith is working now with the women once a week, and they do art projects every week, and they talk about their experience, and it's really just great. It's just building this great social cohesion in the neighborhood for the women and for the neighborhood itself. So I think when we look at the People's Paper Co-op, we can see a few community development outcomes that are pretty clear. One, it's creating social cohesion with the women who have just been released from prison. It's giving them a place to come that's safe and that's nurturing and that's run by someone who is actually who is one of them. I mean, Faith is a formerly incarcerated individual, and now she's bringing these women through this process, and it's really making a change in their lives. And so that's a really important community development outcome around social cohesion. So our second bucket at LISC, when we think about creative placemaking, is physical transformation. For many, the first thing that pops into your head is public art, or maybe a mural project, or maybe thinking about urban furniture. At LISC, we really like to think about how physical transformation sends cultural signals to the rest of the world. So when we think about messages of ownership and who lives here and how who lives here is expressed to the rest of the world, these are the kinds of things we're looking for when we think about physical impacts at LISC. I've got two really great stories about physical impact. In Providence, Rhode Island, there's a great group of folks that have teamed up to do some thinking about how to improve a neighborhood gateway called Trinity Square. Within Trinity Square, there's a large cultural facility that's in the middle of sort of reinventing itself, a lot of social service agencies, and a disinvested graveyard, really a graveyard that's been sort of in disrepair for a long time. The police department, the city Department of Art and Culture, the mayor's office, the LISC office, the Southside Cultural Center, and all of the different neighborhood social service organizations have come together to kind of think about how to improve this area. In the work there, we've really done a focus on changing the physical environment. Rhode Island School of Design came in and worked with the group of stakeholders within the building that are different small cultural organizations, the Latino Arts Organization, Rhode Island Black Storytellers, the Cambodian Society, and they're all working together to figure out how to program this building. And the students at RISD worked with the neighborhood through a lot of fits and starts. There was a lot of, is this the right way to do community engagement? How are we approaching the neighborhood? How are we engaging in the neighborhood? The outcome, though, has been really quite amazing, and it took a long time to get there because there was a lot of adjustments along the way. But what happened was the RISD students developed this beautiful building that lights up at night, that's now a pavilion for the cultural center to be used during the summer months to do programming. At the same time, that group of stakeholders has come together to really look at issues in the neighborhood and figure out how to solve them. They're working with a Safe Growth project, which is looking at the streetscapes to think about how to improve those places so that they become safer for people to be waiting for buses at and things like that. But one of the outcomes, one of the policy outcomes of this work has been that liquor laws have been changed. Because prior to this work happening, liquor stores in the area were able to open at 7 a.m. and now there's been a policy shift and they can only open at 9, so that law has been changed. So this particular project that included artists kind of coming in and thinking about the neighborhood in a different way and has really set up some outcomes around policy in terms of those liquor laws. A neighborhood association has developed out of the work, and the network of the artists and the other cross-sector partners has really strengthened. It's also led to an investment from the state cultural bond program so that they're fixing up this building now, and it's going to be a real, it already works as a cultural hub for the neighborhood, but with all this extra work, it's really going to become a beacon for culture in that neighborhood. Another quick example of how physical impacts in a neighborhood, how we've been working with physical impacts is in Philadelphia with Taller Puertorriqueño. So the outcome of this capacity building work is El Corazon, which is a cultural center in the heart of the neighborhood. So the cultural center now has been able to expand its services, and it's really also helping small businesses in the neighborhood sort of build new clients and feed those businesses. So it's really become a hub of activity in the neighborhood. It was already, but this is a great example of how to invest in an inherent cultural asset. So our third bucket is economic impact. In this bucket, we often think of arts and economic impact, and we think about theaters and how they sort of feed restaurants and maybe increase hotel stays, things like that. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. We're talking about how arts and culture can inform economic development in neighborhoods and how it can help build wealth and build businesses. So and we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're still looking at theaters and things like that in terms of how they can help a neighborhood get stronger. But in this case, I'm going to talk about the Asian Economic Development Association in St. Paul, Minnesota, where Va Meng Thong, who is the executive director there, started working with creative placemaking tools in about 2012. And Liz came in and helped him actually provided the resources for him to hire an artist organizer to think about how arts and culture could strengthen their economic development work, which is really what the focus of their CDC was all about. So they started with Creative Placemaking 101, a night market. Let's bring people into a place that they're afraid to go at night and make it seem safe. So they created this great night market. It's been going on for a few years now. But the cool thing is that now some of those vendors that were part of the night market are enrolled in the entrepreneurship classes at the Asian Economic Development Association, and they're starting to build businesses, and some of them have actually built permanent businesses along this market corridor. So you can see that there's a trajectory of work that happens from a very simple event to businesses being developed. And this is a really great example of how arts and culture and creative placemaking can be used in economic development. The terms creative placemaking have been around since about 2011 when the NEA penned the study Creative Placemaking. That study really looked at how arts and culture were being used in community to solve problems and have community development outcomes. Some of those stories were about mayors, and some of those stories were about political engagement. So there was really a broad-based look at how arts and culture connect with community. Since then, Art Place America was founded. And at this point in time, when we think about creative placemaking, we're really thinking about community development outcomes. I think there was a lot of different definitions at the beginning of all the work, but right now the way that we're approaching it is how can arts strategies and artists serve community? And that's the way LISC is approaching it. Not in order to change a place or make a new place or make a place, but in order to cultivate the inherent cultural identity and the cultural assets in the neighborhood, and to daylight those things and bring them up and really give ownership and agency to the residents that live and work there to express their cultural identity and share that with each other and the rest of the world in order to sort of hold ground in those places. And it's really important when it comes into play around economic pressures that are sometimes coming into some of our neighborhoods, around gentrification issues, around who owns these places, and who gets to express themselves in those places.